Hey guys, how's it going? So you're probably wondering, how am I doing? I'm alright, but I'm not happy. And you guys shouldn't be happy either, because the ATF is at it again. There's breaking news about the Franklin Armory Reformation that is pretty much unprecedented, arbitrary, capricious, outside of the rule of law, unfounded, and quite frankly comes off as completely jackboot, if you want my opinion. Now let's back up real quick here. You guys remember the bump stock ruling? If you're new to the channel, go back and look at my library of gun rights videos. I've done probably a dozen videos on the bump stock ban when it was live, when it was occurring, right? And I said, look, it doesn't matter if you guys care about the bump stock or not. We all need to care about this bump stock. Well, not many of us cared. The other side overwhelmingly overruled us with letters supporting the bump stock ban, where very few gun owners actually oppose the bump stock ban. The numbers are there. You can go look them up. It's public record. But we didn't care about the bump stock ban too much. I know I did, and I know most of you guys individually did. But when I say we, I mean the colloquial we. Like, we the people, we the gun owners didn't care. And basically, this bump stock ban was a one of a kind. It was a sea change when it came to the fact that even though there was clear written definitions in the law that were very, very clear, that an agency could now interpret something that didn't need interpretation. They could take a black and white issue, they could add gray to it, and they could make an interpretation of it. And due to other cases like Chevron, with the Chevron deference, that they would actually have to go by the interpretation ruling by the alphabet soup agency would have precedence over the actual law itself. Yeah, that's what happened during the bump stock ban. It basically made it where they opened the doors where now the ATF and the Attorney General and the Department of Justice can basically ban whatever the heck they want. And many of us, including me, were saying the whole time with the bump stock ban, this is a slippery slope. They're going to do it again. It's not when are they going to do it, it's how much are they going to do it. It's going to come. They're going to keep banning more and more and more. Well, just today, the ATF has now reclassified the Franklin Armory Reformation as a GCA SBS. GCA short-barreled shotgun. Now, what the heck is that? Well, yeah, I'm wondering the same thing, because quick history lesson for you guys. Back in 1934, the National Firearms Act, it took a certain subsection of guns, the highly unconstitutional NFA, by the way, and said, look, these are too dangerous and these don't suit, any type of regular everyday purpose, and we don't want everyone to have them, so we're going to apply a $200 tax. Well, along with that tax, there's extra paperwork, background checks. You can't cross state lines without a permission slip. And this applied to things like, machine guns, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, silencers, destructive devices, and other things. Now look, the NFA has been the law that has classified these so-called unique items. Now, I don't think they're unique. I don't think they should be regulated any different than a BB gun. I think all gun laws are unconstitutional, and I firmly believe that. But going by what they've said, long-standing precedents of, 80 years now? The NFA has always regulated what a short-barreled shotgun or short-barreled rifle is. Well, real quick, if you guys aren't familiar with the Franklin Armory Reformation, it has a barrel that's less than 16 inches. But it's not a shotgun because it doesn't chamber shotgun shells, and it's not a smoothbore. It's also not a rifle because instead of having lands and grooves that have a twist rate or a spiraling effect to impart spin on the projectile, the bullet, they're straight lands and grooves. So, by the letter of the law, people will call it a loophole. I don't call it a loophole. I just say it's not included in the law, right? Because this whole law, this NFA and GCA, are both highly unconstitutional. But I digress. According to any laws we have, it can't be a short-barreled rifle because it doesn't impart spin on the bullet. It can't be a short-barreled shotgun because it doesn't shoot shotgun shells, and it's not a smooth bore. And it's not a pistol because it is designed to be held and fired with two hands. By the way, guys, pistols, by the legal definition, are only designed to be fired with one hand. So, watch out there. Don't. Look, guys, I'm not trying to predict anything, but read the definition. You better all start lifting some weights. Get your forearms strong. Make sure you can shoot all your pistols perfect with one hand, because here's the deal. The ATF has now officially gone more rogue than they ever have before. Now, they've been out of bounds for quite a while with their arbitrary ruling on the 7 and 6. That I would know, not many of us cared about that either. They went after the M855. We all rose up. We argued. We screamed and yelled and said, no, come and take it. And they backed off. They do back off when we let them know, when we're loud enough, when there's enough of us. But the 7 and 6, not many people cared, and they reclassified that as so-called armor piercing, which it's not, and it's gone. And then they set a bump stock, a mere piece of plastic, that as soon as you let up on the forward perpetual motion of the push-pull movement, it stops firing. It's not a machine gun. We all know it's not a machine gun. Machine gun was very clearly defined in the National Firearms Act. ATF out of the blue said it's a machine gun. Not if it's installed to your gun. No, just having the stock itself, the piece of plastic, that in and itself is a machine gun, which cannot be transferred because, well, the grace period and for that, the grandfather clause for that ended in 1986 with the Hughes Amendment, also unconstitutional. So bump stocks all had to be turned in or destroyed. Now, this didn't come from any law. In fact, this ruling was the complete opposition to law. They literally redefined a law that was in plain English, and as of now they're still fighting this. GOA still fighting this. Firearms Policy Foundation still fighting this. But as of right now, the courts have said, yeah, that's fine. The ATF can take a black and white law and change it to something that it doesn't say. And their opinion on the law means more than what the law says itself. See Chevron deference. Look, none of this makes any sense, okay? If you see me crossing my eyes and going like this, yeah, it doesn't make sense. It's just not right. Look, all of us are born with common sense. Our Constitution was written and our Bill of Rights where a third grader should be able to understand it. You don't need to be highly educated in this country to have your unalienable God-given rights. You don't need to be a lawyer. You don't need to consult a lawyer. No, the Constitution's very, very easy to understand. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Classifications of precedents upon precedents, taking a black and white issue, turning it into a gray area, reinterpreting it to what shade of gray is or isn't it, even though there's a black and white law, but we have to go with the gray area because this other Supreme Court of Chevron said this, and you have to defer to the agency that's interpreting more than the law itself. No, that's not how this country was formed. It's not how this country was founded. And this is just another example of them literally just pulling laws out of thin air. Now, someone will say, well, hold on a minute. It's not a law. It's just a ruling. Look, it's a law because you can go to prison if you violate. The strong arm of the law, the same people that arrest you for breaking laws, arrest you for violating these ATF regulations. So you can call it a law. You can call it not a law. At the end of the day, this is draconian, tyrannical gun control that should not be accepted or tolerated by any of us. So basically what they're literally saying now, guys, and I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to try to explain this to you, but I'm going to tell you what it is real briefly. They're saying this is now a GCA, a Gun Control Act short-barreled shotgun, this Franklin Armory Reformation. What the heck is that? Well, that doesn't even exist, but they've just created it just now. And basically what they're saying is this. There's provisions on how to transfer a SBS shotgun under the NFA, tax stamp, forms, certain types of dealers, waiting periods, all. There's already methods for that. Unconstitutional, but there's methods for it, right? Now, this is a Gun Control Act of 1968, short-barreled shotgun. Well, there is no such thing. There's no provisions for it because there is no such law. They're literally making this up, and they're saying right now, the Franklin Armory Reformation cannot be sold. Any dealers that have it, you can't sell it because there's no legal forms to sell it under. You can't transport it across state lines because under the NFA, if it was a SBS, there's a permission slip where you get to lick their boot, you know, and bag them, and then they'll let you take it across state lines, right? If you can prove there's a necessity that you need to do it. It's in the law. You guys can look all this up. I'm just looking at a quick article here, USC 922A4 requires an individual wishing to transport an SBS in interstate or foreign commerce must obtain approval by the Attorney General to transport the firearm. 18 USC 922B4 requires authorization from the Attorney General consistent with public safety and necessity prior to the sale or delivery of an SBS to an individual by an FFL, and the Attorney General has delegated the authority for approval request pursuant to these sections to the ATF. That's for an NFA SBS. Well, this new GCA SBS, which is fake, the law doesn't exist. Now look, I'm not telling you guys it's fake like you should break the rule, because it's fake, but trust me, there's people with guns that will come and shoot your dog and take it from you if you violate. So I'm not telling you to violate any rules here, but this isn't a law. It doesn't exist, this GCA SBS. So there is no permission slip. There is nothing codified into the United States Code stating the proper procedure to transfer it across state lines. So basically the ATF saying, look, we're going to be developing procedures and forms to address this new type of firearm. Once promulgated, these new procedures and forms will provide the mechanism necessary for FFL holders and owners of these new GCA SBS firearms to request the statutorily required approvals. Until such time, you should be aware of the following. Any FFL may lawfully sell, transfer a GCA SBS such as the Reformation to the holder of an appropriate type of FFL. But not all FFLs, because a GCA SBS cannot be transferred to the holder of a Type 6 or Type 3 FFL. And then it goes on to say no mechanism currently exists for ATF to authorize a request from an FFL to transfer a GCA SBS, such as the Reformation, to a non-licensee. Therefore, until the ATF is able to promulgate a procedure for processing and approving such requests, an FFL may not lawfully transfer a Reformation configured as a GCA SBS to a non-licensee. They mean people that aren't paying special occupational tax, SOTs. That's me and you and 99% of the people watching it. They can't transfer it to us. No mechanism currently exists for an unlicensed individual who possesses a GCA SBS, such as Reformation, to submit a request and receive approval to transport the GCA SBS across state lines. Therefore, until ATF is able to promulgate a procedure for processing and approving such requests, the possessor or owner of the GCA SBS, such as Reformation, may not lawfully transport the firearm across state lines. Any questions pertaining to this open letter may be sent to the Firearms Industry Programs Branch at FIPB at atf.gov or 202-648-7190. And that's from Chris W. Gilbert, Acting Assistant Director of the Enforcement Programs and Services. So that's the deal, guys. Sorry to read so fast, but I don't want this video to last an hour. There is now this thing supposedly called a GCA SBS. Look, guys, the bump stock ban, it wasn't about bump stocks. Yes, it was about bump stocks, because that's particularly what it pertained to. And the current litigation is about bump stocks. Bump stocks were just the teeniest tip of the iceberg. They were literally a grain of sand in the whole beach, right? They're now using rulemaking to create rules out of thin air, to create laws that do not exist. These people are no longer interpreting law. They're making law, completely unchecked by the people's house, the Senate, the duly elected president. They're bypassing all of it. They're literally acting without rule of law, and they're making laws on the cuff, on the fly. They're interpreting existing laws that have very clear statutory definitions, and they are changing them, like with the bump stocks, making something that was black and white that literally has no room for interpretation. They're now interpreting it, and their interpretation has now gotten the power to mean more than the law itself. They don't care about violating ex post facto laws, meaning if it was legal when you did it, you can't be in trouble now for doing something that was legal when you did it. Ex post facto is now out the window with the bump stock ban, with the Reformation. You can legally transport it across state lines when you bought it. You can't now. You can't even pay them a certain amount of money to do it. You can't beg them and get a permission slip to do it. You just can't do anything with it. Dealers that have them in their inventories, hopefully they don't go out of business because they can't sell them. They just have to sit there. And that's as of right now. It wouldn't surprise me in a week if they say turn them all in, cut them up. Look, I have no sources that say that's going to happen, but with what happened with bump stocks, turn them in, Destroy them, cut them up, burn them, give them to us. No compensation. It has now become the status quo, and it's been accepted as normal with the precedence of the bump stock ban, that they can have ex post facto laws, that they can literally take. The takings clause means nothing now. They can take lawfully purchased property that was told to you previously by the ATF themselves that was legal, that you spent your hard-earned money for. They can take it and not compensate you. Just happened with the bump stock. Now it's happening with these. What's going to be next? What do you guys think is going to be next? When are people finally going to care? What's your line, guys? What's your line in the sand? Maybe you didn't like bump stocks. Maybe you didn't like 7 and 6 ammo. Maybe you didn't like the Reformation. Maybe you don't like this. Do you guys like BB guns? Because if we decide the last thing we like is BB guns, guess what? They'll be very happy to accommodate. And in a few years, that's all we could have left is BB guns. So if that's all you like, then that's fine. But if you guys value other things, we can't let this Reformation thing go by the wayside, guys. Not enough of us cared about bump stocks. Not enough of us cared about 7 and 6. I think we all need to care about the Reformation. And look, I know I'm preaching to the choir. My viewers, you guys are the smartest ones, the best ones. You guys get it. But for your friends out there that you're talking to about this, that aren't calling the ATF about this, that aren't going to be emailing the ATF about this, that aren't going to be getting involved with places like GOA, Firearms Policy Coalition, your local state groups. For those of you that don't care, or your friends that you know that don't care, find out what you care about. Because if you don't care about any of these firearms that we have, and you don't care about the fact that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, guess what? They'll continue to infringe. They're never, ever, ever going to stop until they get down to where, what do we all care about? If it's BB guns that we all care about and that's it, I assure you that's all we'll have left in a very short period of time. So look, guys, I care about the Reformation. I believe it's protected under the Second Amendment as much as the AR-15, as much as the 1911, as much as the double-barreled shotgun. And there is no such thing as a weapon that we don't care about. Anything that we can use to defend our life, our family, our pursuit of happiness, to potentially fight off a tyrannical government, we have to care about it. Because if we just pick and choose what we care about, guess what? They're going to pick and choose for us what we are allowed to have. And it's happening again. It's happening right now. And if you think the end of it's here, no. This is just the beginning, guys. It's just the beginning. The end is going to be when we tell them, no, enough's enough. You're not just going to make laws out of the blue. It's not going to happen. We the people, you answer to us. So I care about this, guys. It's a pretty big deal. We now have a new thing called a GCA SBS, and there is no proper paperwork to transfer it or move it across state lines. And one more thing, I'm going to end on this note, because I know someone's going to say this, and that's fine. We can disagree, but I'm going to say it because I truly mean it. For those of you that say it's our fault because too many people wrote the ATF asking them for clarifications about this, and we needed to stop asking the ATF questions and they'll leave us alone. That's BS. That's BS. Lady Justice wears a blindfold, a set of scales in one hand and a sword in the other. She's blind. We're all supposed to be equally protected under the law. And any law or regulation that carries the force of law in this country, of course you have the right to ask what the law is. I don't care if 300 million people called the ATF and asked them what is the law pertaining to this Franklin Arms Reformation. 300 million people can call them, and you know what? The law is the law, and it doesn't matter who's calling. So no, people that called asking about the Reformation, they're not to blame. There's nothing wrong with people calling and asking what the law is. Someone that's wanting to be law-abiding. The problem is we've let these agencies go so rogue that we're afraid to poke the bear. When really, they should be afraid of us. Because when there's liberty, the government fears the people. And when there's tyranny, people fear the government. So don't be afraid to ask questions. You can ask all the questions you want, and it still doesn't change what the law is. And there is no law that was passed by duly elected members of Congress. There was no law signed by the president that ever said that this Reformation is an SBS. And it's not. And the ATF's overstepped their bounds once again. And all of us need to care, or we're not going to have anything left to care about. Alright, guys. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.